everyone, welcome back to the Cosplay Crunch. Each week we gather to talk all things cosplay and conventions, from personal experiences, useful tips and advice, horror stories and hot takes, and sometimes the latest news and drama. We have it all. I am your host, Savage Cosplay. In this episode, we are joined by two extremely talented crafters from the north, from north of the wall, you could say. It's pretty cold up there. Please welcome Wig-Wig Cosplay. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm so excited. You both have quite the reputation. Infamous, some might say. No, I've heard nothing but good things from our mutual friend Taco Cat, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys. You've done so many cool things with cosplay, and you're the first cosplay couple that have ever been on this show. Yes, hearts all the way.
I almost did that without looking.
We're going to get to the relationship aspect, don't you worry, because I have questions about how two cosplayers that live together don't kill each other. Yeah.
Light 'em up.
No, it'll be easy. It'll be fun.
Kevlar, mostly.
Yeah, you know.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding.
It's all that leatherworking. No.
We're building armor.
No. Yeah, seriously. That's why we have so much armor cosplays, to prevent the brutality.
Yep.
No, so actually, the first thing I want to start, usually I start with cosplay beginnings. We're going to go to that second. The first thing I want to ask is, where the hell did your name come from? Because it's such a unique name, Wig-Wig Cosplay. How did this happen? Where did this come from? And did one of you have this name before you met, or did you create it together?
A little bit of both, actually, because, we did have it before we met, and we created it together. The WIGS and Wig-Wig Cosplay come from our last names. Went together, hyphenated, make a wig-wig in the middle. And everyone says when we get married, we have to hyphenate our last name because that will be the one true wig. So it blows people's minds. They're like, wait a minute, it's your real name.
It's our real names.
We're like, yeah.
You just seared the top of my brain clean off. I could never have expected that your actual names, comes from your actual last name. I thought it was just like, I don't know what I thought. I was like, oh, cosplayers wear wigs, so maybe it's that.
I almost made a joke that we wanted to be messaged by like every Chinese wig company.
No.
Because we definitely get them in our DMs all the time, being like, hey, do you sell wigs? What's your, like, talking about like sourcing them and like distribution details, and we're like, yeah, we don't do that. We're just cosplayers.
We don't sell wigs.
That is so freaking funny. I'm still reeling from this. That was the last answer I thought you would give me, because I was like, how improbable is that? That's just funny. Oh my God. So I'm still okay. I have to move on from this. I have to get over this hill. Now, okay. So the name comes from it's derived from your actual last names combined, and then you also go by like a kind of pseudonym of Wig Tall and Wig Small, which I think is very adorable. Those are more self-explanatory. Than.
For those who don't know, our height difference is almost by a foot. So I am Wig Small and he is Wig Tall.
Right.
So
I'm sitting on a much lower chair. Now.
So I am actually the tall one today. The tables have turned.
That is so good. No, for me and my partner Andrew, so he's 5'8" on a good day, and I'm 6'1". But when we sit down, we're the same height, because all of his height is in his torso. So yeah, no, I was like, maybe it's a similar situation, but no, anyway. Okay. I want to know about your cosplay beginnings, obviously. So did you two start cosplay together? Did you start cosplay separately and then meet each other? Tell me all about it.
All right, you first.
Me first?
You first.
All right, so I started cosplaying in college. I grew up in like rinky-dink, North Dakota, and was watching like, Toonami and stuff like that, but it wasn't really
what it was called. Was it called Rinky Dink, North Dakota?
Yes, absolutely.
I have to ask because I don't
know.
No,
it wasn't. It wasn't actually, but the town literally has like 12 people in it. So, I really didn't like come into my like anime renaissance until late high school, and then in college, I finally discovered that conventions were a thing, because there was one like 200 feet from my dorm room at the local like college place. I think it was the Student Union. And that was actually Nebraska before it moved to Omaha. It was at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And some of my friends were cosplayers, and they were like, hey, we're doing all of Oron High School. and we need more people. So we'll buy you this jacket and a little like iron-on thing, and then you can be Kyoya when we like spray your hair black. So that's
Classic.
how I started. That's how I started cosplaying. Was my friends were like, "Hey, do this big group with us," and we literally had all of them. We had the whole host club and everything. It was a lot of fun, and that's what kind of like pulled me into it. And then I eventually started making my own stuff.
That's like, I'm so happy that we have a kindred spirit in spraying our hair a different color instead of just getting a wig or like, anyway, Janella, how did you start cosplaying?
Yeah. So for me, I started much earlier. I started in middle school, and it was towards like the end of middle school, beginning of high school. And one of my friends, I also grew up in pretty much rinky-dink North Dakota, but I was in the city where he was more in the country. So I actually had a library that I could go to that had manga in it. And then when I went to high school, I became part of the manga acquisitions club, which honestly, we just went to Barnes & Noble and we like flipped through the manga really fast to see if there was anything naughty in there. And we were like, okay, this is good for the school. It was incredible. Also,
wait, yes, so if it was NSFW, you'd take it back to the school?
No.
The other way around.
All the way around.
Although I was like, I love that.
So I actually went to that same high school for like the very end of my high school career. And I definitely read Akira like in the comics in the school. So there was definitely NSFW content in that library.
That was before my time.
Before they got there.
So, before the manga acquisition club came in and enforced the rules and laid down the law.
Kept it clean.
And then I also started the cosplay club at that school too. So that was a whole thing. But reverse. My friend and I, we were really into watching anime and things like that. So we decided, oh my gosh, Minnesota has anime conventions. Let's drive 8 hours to an anime convention with your mom and let's go. So we did. And we dressed as Haruhi Suzumiya and crew, and it was incredible. So that was like the first dive into more or less like anime for me and like cosplaying. And then after that, those friends kind of fell off the cosplay train, but I just kept going and was making them costumes. And then they just kind of decided, oh, like I just like panels and things like that and shopping. And like, okay, I love to cosplay. So I just kept going. And then college happened and found him. And then we started cosplaying together. So
y'all met in college?
Well, we met while I was in college. Yeah, so he's 4 years older than me. So
Gotcha. So you met like at a convention, I'm assuming then?
No.
Our origin story is fun too.
I want this. Yes, give it to me.
So we met in Bismarck, North Dakota, in an old residential neighborhood where an older friend of ours was hosting D&D in his basement.
Well, not even a friend of mine at the time, because the friend, so the friend was a friend of the one friend who I mentioned from middle school. So also my cousin. And my cousin was doing a D&D campaign with Alan's friend. And
I should have brought a whiteboard.
I know, right? This is where we need the whiteboard.
Seriously.
So that friend was playing D&D in the basement of the mutual friend. And then I was invited over, and I had just come back from being in Italy and doing like a Latin program there. And so I came back and I was like, hey, I have literally nothing to do in this town for the next 3 weeks before I go back to college. So, well, yeah, sure, I'll hang out. I'll go to D&D. So I pop into D&D, and that's where I met him.
Yep.
Literally in a D&D basement.
I love. What classes did you play in that campaign? I want to know. Do you remember what classes you were?
What was I? Because I was just back for a short period of time too. So it was basically like I was jumping into a campaign that a bunch of other people were established in. I think I was a warlock because he was trying out 5th edition. Because it was like brand new.
See, I was a 3.5 girly, and then I didn't. Well, I know that 4th edition no one really liked. I think 5th got better.
Yeah,
that's what I understand.
Edition, yeah,
that is all true.
Okay.
I mean, if you love 3.5, you didn't just continue on in Pathfinder. It's basically the same, right?
Well, I kind of stopped playing because like I played a really long campaign, and then I kind of stopped playing, and then like cosplay just became way too much time intensive in my life, and so I was like, okay, well, I've done like some one shots since then with different people, but I haven't done like a full-fledged campaign. I just don't think I could actually comprehend or handle that level of like commitment to anything.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
So no, it's so interesting. So you both discovered cosplay separately. You met through a mutual friend, and then you were both like, oh my god, I'm a cosplayer, you're a cosplayer, this is crazy, clearly we have to date. That was the first step, right?
It was actually the other way around. We started dating and then found out that we had both cosplayed
because we watched Gurren Lagann together, and that sealed the deal. So
and then we were like, oh, we have to cosplay Gurren Lagann because this show is awesome.
And then we did.
That.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was your the first convention that you guys went to together? Do you remember?
Was it Anime Fusion?
Shoot,
What's
it
that?
might have been.
I feel like it was Anime Fusion, then it was Anime Detour, then it was Anime Iowa. I feel like in that order.
I think you're right.
I feel like
so. Two of those are Minnesota conventions in Minneapolis.
Is Anime Fusion in Minneapolis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it still exist?
Yeah,
we'll have to talk about that
a lot, actually. Yeah.
Oh my god! I'm like, look, okay, we're gonna get into this.
Small, so I don't blame you.
Yeah. No. So the next thing I have on here,
that is the first one for sure. I remember.
Yeah, because I did Riku from 10-2.
Because that's when I met some of your roommates
Summoner
too.
Mage. Yes, and my roommates were there.
And they were very standoffish.
They're nice people.
No.
They didn't know him. So
I was stranger.
Yeah, you were stranger.
Who is this man in the corner?
Who's this tall man?
We eventually became better friends, but
it took some teeth pulling.
We were like cats in the same room. Like,
so I want to learn more about cosplay, and I'm not saying the Midwest because I lived in Chicago for a few years and I have not been to all the conventions in the Midwest by any means, but I did go to a number of them, and I have a good basis of understanding for conventions in Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana area. I don't know anything about cosplay in Minnesota.
The central area of the Midwest, not like the Great Plains area of the Midwest,
right.
Like Iowa, Minnesota, none of that.
Right.
Okay, well, it's different. I love our community, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
There are aspects of our community that we share with every community, which is like, unfortunately, the cattiness, things like that happens around here, but because we also have that passive-aggressive Midwestern nature, it gets like a little weird sometimes. And it also like escalates really quickly, which is strange, and I don't know why. I mean, we're all adults, we could talk it out, but some people choose not to. But I mean, that happens everywhere. I've also heard like horror stories on the East Coast of this kind of happening too, and I'm like, same hat. But
I don't know. Texas has never had any problems.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah.
I can't relate to anything you're saying right now.
What a diplomatic answer.
But, I mean, like, honestly, though, I would say our community is some of the kindest community. Like, the green room at Anime Fusion this last year, we had someone who wasn't even in the contest knock on the door and ask if they could give out envelopes to everyone in the room that was like a congratulations, thank you for being in the contest. Like, we were cheering you on. Like, even if you didn't win, you did amazing. And it came with like stickers and stuff, and it was just so cute. It was like it was just a little green envelope gift. It was like kind of pseudo red envelope. It was really cute.
Yeah, exactly. As much as we have the passive aggressiveness, we also have the kindness.
Yeah, we love hard, like we really do. So it's awesome up here.
Yeah, there's some really, really good people.
What are like the main? So like I've heard of Anime Detour vis-a-vis other friends that have said really good things about it, that I know personally. But what are the different? Well, first of all, here's a question: does Minnesota have more than one city?
I mean, yeah, technically. I mean, we're from the Twin Cities area.
That's
so
true.
Like,
oh, wait, Minneapolis and St. Paul. But beyond those two. Wait. That doesn't count. Because I was literally I was on a map before this, and I was like, what does the state look like? And I was on Google Maps, and I was like,
it looks like the letter K.
Right. Well, because I've been to Rochester, Minnesota before. But that's what I would call a city. I don't know what that was.
The only real metro is Minneapolis. We have other places I would call cities, like not metro areas,
suburbs, and then like you've got Duluth, which is gorgeous. So North Shore.
Yeah, Duluth. Yeah. I know a friend that worked at a camp there.
If you're into like
Duluth is great.
Yeah, if you're looking to go like as close to Canada as possible, like Grand Marais and the Boundary Waters.
Well, that's not a city, though.
But I mean, like it's an area and it's really cool. And there's lots of people in it. I mean, there's people around.
Are you just hyping Minnesota now?
Yeah, gotta do my due diligence over here.
You're repping the state, no pressure.
I couldn't bring a loon into this call, but this is about as close as it gets.
What's that?
Our state bird.
Oh yeah,
it's on the flag.
I would know this. No, so what?
I'll be straight up. I don't know what the Texas flag looks like.
It's literally a star. And it's red and blue.
I see the colors. Okay, the colors I didn't really know.
Or red and white. Wait, I don't even know what this looks like either. It's like
oh my gosh!
It's like red, white, and blue.
Awesome.
It's red. It's red, white, and blue rectangles, and there's one star because it's like the one.
Oh, the Lone Star State. I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like bars, like all the way across.
No,
Or
just
up and
3.
down.
There's like a rectangle, and a rectangle.
Okay,
I'm doing a horrible job of
I'm
explaining
gonna,
this.
I'm gonna have to.
but
I'm gonna have to go look. We'll go look later.
We'll
we'll bring
Google
you
on the
something from
break.
Bucky's. We'll bring you a Bucky's beaver with a
Yep.
Texas flag on the
Please.
back.
Oh my gosh. I need to go to Bucky's sometime. It's like spiritual, I've heard.
Well, yeah, come to Texas, come to San Japan, and then
Yes.
It's been a
Bucky's.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since
We
we've
never
been
went
to Texas.
to.
I've been to a Texas.
You went
con
to a Texas con?
once.
Yeah,
Which
I never
one?
did.
A-Con
Oh yeah. Oh, that
a
makes
long
sense.
time ago.
Yeah.
The thing I remember most about
Oh.
A-Con. This is a.
Ooh, tell.
Somebody put hard drugs in the water at the rave. That's what I remember about
Oh,
A-Con.
I thought you were going to talk about the deer and
No,
people you didn't.
that's
Okay,
mostly
good.
what I remember about A-Con.
T, love that.
Yeah.
They were just spreading the fun as you do.
I don't
Didn't that
remember what
happen
year
at
it
Hallmat
was,
last
but-
year?
Yes.
Did it really?
Oh, yeah. Like
Yikes.
people were putting stuff into the water coolers there. It was spooky.
Yeah.
That's why I'm bringing my Brita filter water bottle this year.
Right.
I am not drinking any of that. I am gonna be
No
safe
gator
and
water
sound.
for you.
No, I can't. So okay, convention. So Anime Detour obviously
Yes.
is one of the larger ones, right? That's
Yes.
in Minneapolis, and then your convention that you're the cosplay coordinator of. Tell me about that convention.
Oh, it's such a cute little convention. So it's called Anime Fusion, and it's just a little convention. It's like 2,000 people. And when it's its biggest, it's really cute. I would say that like probably the thing that I'm most proud of is how we've developed the cosplay community at Fusion, and like we have like our own section of the hotel basically. Like we have the cosplay lounge. We've got cosplay programming all weekend that I also like handle and put up and all of that. So we have cosplay programming in a special room all weekend long, and then we've got the big contest, and like it's just so fun. Our contest is one of my favorites. Like it's fun to run it because everyone's energy is just so good in that room, and everyone's so excited to sign up every year. We usually like our online signups, they fill within a week. It's really cute. Sometimes we fill within like the day that we open, which is exciting to me because it's like, oh yay, more people are very, very excited about this. And then also our team is just such a well-oiled machine. Like I absolutely adore my team. I could not do it without them, honestly. We all share a brain cell and we just toss it around very quickly, and it just makes magic. So much magic that other conventions have actually asked for our team to come and run their contests for them when they're like in a pinch and their coordinator like can't or has requested help. So yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, wow.
It's nice to know that like we have done so good in kind of the realm of our Midwest area that people want our help, and like that's really cool. That makes me feel really good about what we're doing. So
That is awesome.
And
I've heard.
you
Oh, sorry, go.
I was just gonna say you attract a lot of like new cosplayers and
Yes.
stuff to that contest too specifically.
yeah, Anime Fusion kind of we sell ourselves as kind of a learning convention because we're small. Like you can come and you don't get overwhelmed by lines, you don't get overwhelmed by the size of the building, like the cost, anything like that. But you don't lose out on the experience because we still have a great artist alley, we still have a great merchant hall. We've got all sorts of things. We've got the contest. We've got really good guests, and our guests are lesser known guests too, which is really fun because we bring in guests who I think this last year we had the creator of Ghost in the Shell, which was amazing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so we had that. That was really cool. And then like we've had people like Greg Ayers and everything. So it's pretty awesome. And it allows people to kind of grow into themselves to go to bigger cons and feel more comfortable in what they're doing and kind of where they are. So yeah.
That's cool. I've heard nothing but good things about the anime convention. Oh, so let me rephrase. I've heard nothing but good things about the cosplay departments and the cosplay contest in Minnesota. Granted, I mean, I know of your convention now and Anime Tour, and those are the only two I've heard about. But of both of them, I've heard nothing but good things and really a respect for cosplayers in a way that you do not see at a lot of conventions.
Yeah.
Right.
And then two,
That's
we've
true.
taken that and we've moved it over to our large sci-fi convention, Convergence, which I've helped run as well. And it's just so much fun to be able to share kind of how we run contests with other contest coordinators in the area. And it doesn't seem like it's a battle of who runs the best contest. It's like, how can we run the best contests, plural. So,
Gotcha.
and that's what I really do enjoy. Yeah.
How did you get into becoming the cosplay coordinator for Anime Fusion? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people, myself included, have always thought like, oh, like I've been doing this for a long time. I know how to make costumes. I've done contests. I've done panels.
Mm-hmm.
What else can I do that's a new experience for me within cosplay and like the cosplay sphere? And like I think that, a lot of people think about either helping or running a cosplay department. I don't think a lot of people know how much work is involved,
Oh
but
gosh,
like,
there's so much work.
but how did you decide to like go for this? Like, did you start off as like a volunteer under the cosplay department, or like what happened?
Yeah, so basically we showed up at the con, we won Best in Show, and then the coordinator was like, hey, really, it's only up from here, so you're gonna work for me. And I'm like, okie dokie. So I didn't really know. And then after about 4 years of working under them, I kind of started almost running it as them, and they decided, okay, I'm good now. I can just step down and officially give it to you and my co-head. So we both run it now officially and have for, oh my gosh, 5-6 years now officially, like as the like front facing names. But
Right.
before that, we were running it kind of behind the scenes and then assisting before that. So it's you graduate into the position, and then also you kind of get invited into the space most of the time. So, and then like with
Right.
other conventions, the coordinator is a good friend of mine, and she needed to step away. And she was like, I don't want my ship to sink. I need someone who I know I can trust, who I know I can contact, who knows that I can leave them alone with my contestants, and my contestants will be happy and still come back next year. So they asked to have my crew come in and run the show. And we just basically, we did, what is it, eject on their CD, put our CD in, slammed the CD drive shut, and said upload how we run our contest, and it worked. So we've now proven that we can just like take our contest running anywhere and probably be okay. So
Right.
because it's our group that really runs a solid contest, not so much our paperwork or where we're running the contest. It's our group. So
And I think for the most part, at least that I've seen, there's kind of two ways you end up as a cosplay coordinator. And one is that you join the department and then you do a lot of things, and eventually they're like, all right, you just take this over now. Or a cosplay department like finishes their run and nobody else is there, and somebody just kind of gets put into that position, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but here we go.
Yeah, the voluntold, we love to call them.
Yeah, exactly.
I absolutely use that too.
But
That's so funny. It's like the trial by fire. Like, oh,
Yep.
like I guess this is you now. Obviously it's better when you have like the experience and you're able to learn under someone.
Yeah.
But
and to the passion, like if you like you want to run that. So
right,
because that's a lot. Like you said, there's a lot of work behind it.
Well, and even like if you volunteer and help out at one con, you might end up in that other position where a con needs a cosplay coordinator, and you're like, hey, I have experience in this. And that's better than what usually happens, which is just somebody who leads staff in some other area just kind of takes it over because they need somebody to fill it. So
right.
Yeah,
is
go get that
balancing
experience.
priorities hard? Because I feel like in my head, I'm imagining like, okay, so say I wanted to not necessarily, be like, oh, I want to be the cosplay coordinator, but like be like, oh, I want to be on cosplay staff for a convention. But then as a cosplayer myself, and you would understand this as well, like, between, making your own costumes, going to do guesting at conventions, panels and workshops, and then also your just normal jobs that actually afford for us to do these things.
Yeah.
Is it hard? Like, do you ever feel like, I guess, were you ever nervous that you wouldn't be able to dedicate the amount of time required to the cosplay programming department, given all these other things are a factor?
I mean, yeah, I'd say along with multitude of other things, like we've really slowed down on like our building of costumes, which is super sad, and we do want to hope, like we have high hopes to get back to it in 2025, but it's kind of, we really did step back, and that was because a lot of it was like I had taken on running 2 contests in 1 year, which was a lot of work, plus guesting and traveling and just everything, and like, at one point I had switched jobs, and so it kind of comes down to where it's like you have like something has to give, and at that point it's okay to stop building for a while, because you and your art is always going to be there, but that opportunity might not, or that ability to give someone a really good experience might not be. So I like to think that even though I stepped back, I was able to help another convention run their contest and give those like those contestants a really great experience to allow them to continue having, you know, a good like kind of cosplay career, as we say. So
yeah, and I mean, to answer it from my perspective, yes, definitely. I didn't actually go into the staffing side of things because I also have a lot of other nerdy hobbies that I pursue at the same time as cosplay, and I was like, there's no way I can fit this into my mix, right? Eventually, you have to make decisions about like where your priorities are. So I think that's a very good question. Because yes, you have to prioritize somewhere at some point, right? You can't do everything. As much as I would love to play a million board games and run 3 campaigns and make costumes and, you know, do all these things, like I have to choose.
Right. It's you only have so many hours in a day and so many days in a week. And it's just, you know, how do you fill that time? And that's a good point that you made to Janella with like, your art and your skill will always be there,
yeah.
And those are not hard time fence things, whereas some opportunities come and leave and you might not be able to do that again. And so it's always, I mean, I feel like life in general is right place, right time. And so it's like if you have those things and you take it, but if you don't, then you might not be able to do that ever again. Like if that position came open on the cosplay department and you didn't go for it, well, then you might not ever be able to work in the cosplay department, or at the very least not be able to move into that programming director position ever, or maybe as quickly. So it all is like dominoes. It's crazy how that works. Okay, I want to talk about leatherworking because
that's like all you do.
Well, not all you do. I didn't say you were one tricks. No, I'm kidding.
I know, but it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. So I think something that's interesting is that at least a lot of your programming and a lot of what you do at conventions when you are a guest at the convention or bringing programming to the con is leatherworking. And I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people either don't incorporate leather into their cosplays, or they don't use real leather, or they think that leatherworking is as simple as cutting out a piece and then hammering it together. I want to know how you began leatherworking. Like, where did this come from, and like what was the reason that you two decided to learn how to do this different type of like manipulation of media?
So,
do you want me to go first again?
If you want to.
So we both came from leatherworking before we were together. So for me, it was actually because I wanted to cosplay a specific character in, oh gosh, I'm not even sure what year. It was the 2000s somewhere, late 2000s, and it was Soth from Fire Emblem. And he's like a thief, and all he has is leather armor. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm having fun making stuff. This was like really early in my cosplay career. So I had, very little skill, but also very little fear. So I just kind of bought stuff, and I went to the leather shop, and I was like, all right, I'm looking at these pictures and I'm looking at what I need to do. And I just kind of made it up as I went, kind of the classic cosplayer way. And it turned out in a way. But the gauntlets were really cool. Like they had a cool like structure and stuff. I was very proud of that, even though the finish wasn't super good.
I'm proud of you.
But like, it was just something that I wanted to do a certain cosplay, and I thought that certain cosplay would work much better with leather, which I still think was true. And so that's how I got into it. And then I really, really enjoyed it. That's really what happened, is I was like, oh, I need this for this cosplay. And I was like, this is really fun. And that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
But why, I guess, so I think I know the answer to this now. I'm kind of asking this kind of in a, not a sarcastic way, but in a sense, why leather specifically? Because when you see costumes like a set of armor, you don't go, oh, okay, I'm going to go and make this out of steel, right? You're like, I'm going to use
unless you're one of our friends who we know does that.
Well, yes, but barring the absolute unhinged people of the community, I guess leather is a little different in that it doesn't require you to have like a blacksmithing table and like a forge. Right. You can do also it in your house. But like, I guess what made you think like, oh, I'm gonna go use leather instead of buying like pleather or using foam to do that? I'm just curious, like, how did you end up like settling on leather for this costume, even though it was made of leather, obviously, but like,
right. Well, honestly, I think it was a two brain cell effect. I was like, "Oh, that's leather. I'm gonna go buy leather." Like, I literally didn't go past step one and think, "Oh, I could make this out of foam or like cloth." Or I was just like, "It's made out of leather. All right, I'm going to the store." Like, I just didn't even go to step two.
Welcome to living with him.
Well, and like I said, this was pretty early in my cosplay career. Like, I had a couple cosplay friends, but we were very much like make some and buy some, and we just coordinate stuff together. And sometimes you do your own stuff here, and so like it was kind of it was still very like everything was wide open, and I hadn't really fallen into any real habits yet, and I was still like building out what is cosplay. And so I saw a character with leather, and I went, "Oh, I know a store that sells leather," and I went to the store. Like, that was literally it. It was still just a point where I wasn't really constrained at all, so I never thought to use anything else.
Gotcha. And this was like in the 2000s, you said. So that was a time before there was like a heavy popularization of tutorials and resources and the right way to make
exactly
right way to make costumes. And
well,
so
and
it was more of like a
I had only been to like that
experimenting,
really
right?
small. Yeah, exactly. And I hadn't been to any like larger conventions. I'd really just been to that like the little Nebraskan like in the student union a couple times, and I think maybe Anime Iowa once or something like that. Like I didn't have a lot of experience, and like you said, I hadn't been exposed to this like this is how you cosplay. I was just like making it up as I went.
Mm-hmm. And Janelle, you said you got into leather before Yale met as well.
Yeah. Mine is more, I guess, again, an origin story. So here's more lore, everyone. Because I grew up in the Wild West, I literally lived like Red Dead Redemption.
Were you hunting them?
No,
just kidding.
I did cowboy action shooting. So like I like shot old cowboy guns for like a hobby sport, and I was really good at it.
Wait. The Fire Emblem cosplay, I can at least conceptualize.
Yep.
The Wild West on a horse slinging guns.
Not on a horse.
Okay, that was what I had in my head. So like,
we did stationary so there were two folds on this. So I either did like reenactment where we would go and we'd like take over an old town's like main street and we'd be like, "This town ain't big enough for the two of us," kind of idea.
Were you filming this?
We would, yeah. It's like old though. I don't even know. I think at that point when we were doing those, I was too young to be in the reenactment with a gun. So I had a bullwhip. It was cool. So I was like a little kid with a bullwhip. It was great. And then growing up, I moved into the sport aspect of it. So there's my competitive nature. So I moved into the sport aspect of it, and I was shooting like old, like 6-shooters, lever action rifles, side-by-side shotguns, things like that, in sequence. So you'd have to memorize a sequence. You'd have to, act out a scenario, and then also not miss. So here's the whole thing. And you had to dress in period accurate clothing. So like some of the characters in Red Dead Redemption 2 have the same pants that I know that I wore at least once or twice. So like the brown and black striped, like high-waisted pants with suspenders, that was a look. I will tell you. And they're very comfortable. The pockets are like really nice and deep.
So how does, obviously when you're doing these like kind of like Western like reenactments of like the town square with the tumbleweed and like the guns and the music, so this obviously has leather components, leather holsters, leather belts, leather boots. Like, so was it just like a matter of like being dressed in those types of items that made you interested in how to make them?
Yeah, because I was around people who were making them. So, like, on site, there were actual leather workers who were fixing up people's holsters. They were working on, like, saddles and things as we were, like, doing what we would call, like, the state matches and stuff like that. There would be leather booths. And, like, I was really good friends with a couple of the leather workers. And they would show me, like, what they were working on and how they would do it. And I was like, this is really cool. And then it completely drained out of my brain for like 15 years or so. Not even, probably more like 10. And then met you, and you were doing leather work. And I was like, wait a minute. I know how to do that too. And then we were like, we can make it in cosplay. So then we did. And it was great.
I love that. Do you still have your guns?
I do.
Oh my god!
There was my dad.
You and
I do have my holster upstairs.
You and Taco Cat are packing. You have the firearms. You don't even know. Oh my god! It's like they say people in Texas have guns. Honey, these people out here with their armories, they're ready. Try to go steal that Bernina. Find out what happens.
See, the thing is, you have to find this little niche of cosplayers during like the zombie apocalypse. Like you have to find the cosplayers because like we have these other talents. Like some of us have done archery like competitively or have like shotguns competitively. So like we're actually kind of good at it, and we know what we're doing. We can take them apart. We can fix them. We can like tumble new like shells and stuff like that. Like we know how to reload. Like all sorts of stuff. We are the useful.
Exactly. After the apocalypse, when our economies crumble and we're going back to bartering, we're gonna be the artisans, bitch.
Yes.
We're gonna be on top of the pyramid.
We're gonna be so rich.
We're gonna have all the eggs. We're gonna have all the donkeys. It'll be great.
Oh my gosh.
So
I wanted a donkey. Actually, I've wanted a mule.
A mule specifically?
Animal. Yeah, it's a fine animal.
Fine.
I don't know. My dad would always say that. I think it's a quote from a movie that I don't know.
I only know Shrek. Okay.
That's incredible.
I want to know what is on here. Oh my god. Oh, no, I think was the first time you did leatherworking, Janella, was it for a specific costume? Like Alan did the Fire Emblem costume.
We did leatherworking. I think the first one that we did like for a costume was I hadn't done anything by myself because I was mostly in like college dorm rooms and things like that, and I really hadn't thought about leatherworking in all of those years. Like I said, it just kind of drained out of my brain, and every time I put my holsters on or anything like that, I was doing, single action shooting stuff. So I was like, it was one trained mind versus, oh, I could probably take this and put it in a different hobby. So it wasn't until we big brained and then we were like, oh my gosh, you can put leather in cosplay. We did Astrid and Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon 2. Was that the first one?
It was Pent.
Pent and Louise.
Pent had a little bit of leather armor.
Oh, it was. He had the smallest bit. It was his.
Who are those? What are those?
So Pent and Louise are from Fire Emblem 7.
Oh.
And they're like the mom and dad character that you meet like halfway through, and they're like, oh, I'm going to protect you. One of them's a mage and one of them's an archer. And we cosplayed them because I was a big fan of Pent.
And I just was a big fan of him.
Yep,
so
Janella just came along for the ride mostly.
It happens sometimes like that in groups. In groups, it's like, oh, okay, you want to do this? That looks cool. Let's do it.
We've definitely gone both ways.
Yeah,
on that.
we have.
What do you like about working with leather that you feel is unique, or you can't really get the same result from other types of medium that you work with?
First off, it smells great.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else coming out of whatever package or fabric store you buy it that smells good, but it's not like leather. Leather smells so good just coming out of the store. So
look, I want to feel cool wearing whatever I'm wearing, and I've never felt cooler than when I'm wearing a bunch of leather.
It's true.
It's like I have animals on me.
Well, and it's not just that. It's like there's like a creaking. There's a sound that's very satisfying. There's like it breathes better than like foam and stuff like that. Like there's something about leather that just it moves in a different way, and I don't have to baby it at all. Right? Like it's really really durable and all this stuff. So like. I don't have to think about it as much, and it just it feels good. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I feel like for me, it's like it's such a real world like material that like it's just so like it was once alive. So it's just one of those things where it just like it's so. I don't know how to put it. It's just like so reality for us that like when putting it on a character that's not from a reality, that's from like a video game or something, it just brings them that much more into our world.
That's a good way.
And it just it elevates that idea of taking these 2D characters and pulling them into our space and making them look like they're from here. And I feel like leather and linen and things like that do that depending on like what period that you're trying to go for.
Yeah.
Like that. So,
there's an authenticity to it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that because I was like thinking in terms of translation of media, because like, so for example, right, say you're replicating like a House of the Dragon costume and you're using leather, but then the fabric you end up wanting, the fabric you chooses like a polyester, right, instead of like a linen, where it's like, I feel like most of us would be like, oh yeah, like the linen will look like it's a natural fiber. It looks like it came from that time because it did, right? Whereas like it's not like made of a plastic. And I feel like there's the element of like genuality, I guess, of really feeling the true fantasy when you're wearing these costumes that are made of materials like from that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think if you're really trying to like also play while you're doing cosplay, when you're trying to bring like that like reenacting into it in a way, that's a really good thing. But like some of those polyesters, they have the exact texture and weight that you want, and like go
It's
for
true.
them. Like just go
It's
for
true.
them.
Yeah.
Don't fight with linen if you don't have to. Like, you know, linen loves to look wrinkly, but I mean like you can make it not. But like if you find that polyester, go for it. But yeah, I completely agree. If you're going for like that kind of like that genuine or that like, you know,
Right.
very like reenactment style of trying to be in a certain, I guess, like fantasy realm, which would not have even existed in
Yeah.
our world, but trying to bring it into our world, that's one of the ways to, I think that's one of the best ways to do it.
Well,
in my opinion, I like, it's one of the fastest ways, I should say, is
Yeah.
bringing in those natural materials.
I think it's more stark with leather than it is with other stuff too,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, because like the difference, like you were saying, the differences between some of the more modern fabrics and the older fabrics isn't that much, depending on what fabric you're getting. But like the difference between leather and pleather when you're wearing it is really, really stark,
Yes.
right? Like there's a thickness to it, there's like a weight to it that's just totally different. Like they haven't really figured out how to make a pretend material for leather.
Mhm.
Like there's like cork and stuff that kind of works for like really thin leathers, and you know, a few different like things that you can kind of that you've kind of gotten at. But like there's a reason why purses are still made of leather and wallets are still made of leather. We just don't have a good like replacement for it.
I know what you mean. And also, this is kind of a niche example, but I never really thought of the longevity of materials in the costumes themselves until the past few years when I was revisiting costumes and things that I bought near or bought or made near the
Yeah.
beginning of my cosplay journey. And so these things are like over a decade old at this point, and the materials are degrading. Like
Yes.
if it is a plastic material, a pleather, like a warbler, like anything like it degrades over time, unlike
Oh, yeah.
leather, which will like last you forever as if you maintain it and keep it somewhere
Right.
like safe. But like my costumes were not stored like, you know, in the gutter. They were like in a house, like, and they just degraded over time.
Yeah.
And it's like I think it's just the reality of these materials that are like not natural materials, is that they just don't have as long of a lifespan.
Right. And there's like pros and cons to get into like that aspect of it. You know, if you think about leather, like it's a completely biodegradable material. You know, there's the aspect of, yes, this was an animal at some point, and it's an animal product, but at the same time, there's no lasting impact environmentally to your leather unless it was tanned in certain ways.
Yeah. Like some of the tanning materials that are used, like ammonia and everything like that's rough on the environment, but they've been like trying to figure out ways to make it better. But there are certain types of leather that, like, say, like, you know, the vegetable tan leather versus like a chrome tan.
Yeah.
Like chrome tan is going to be a little harsher on the environment because of what is used in the process of making a chrome tan hide versus making a veg tan, which is what most cosplayers are using rather than chrome tan.
Right.
So we're actually being smart by going the veg tan route and not, you know, going the chrome tan route. So it's, which also is just material wise smarter because you can do more with veg tan than you can with chrome tan overall.
It depends on what you're doing, but yes,
yeah, you know,
that's generally true.
But it's kind of that, even if people are like, you know, oh, well, leather, you know, it once was an animal, you know, it might not be the best for the environment. Actually, it kind of is because it's biodegradable. You have kind of with veg tan, you have a lot of freedom. You get to pick what color you want it to be. You get to pick what size you want to like cut the piece to. You get to do all of that like from scratch. It's like literally rolling out a piece of fabric and cutting out your pieces and working that way.
And there's an aspect to it that's also shopping related, right? Because there's even for veg tan, there's kind of the traditional supply chain, and then there's ethically sourced supply chains. And ethically sourced supply chains are all based on like we're only using animals that were already being slaughtered for food and like all this other stuff. It can be a lot harder to make sure that your leather is ethically sourced. It's sometimes hard to get like a full like 100% answer from a lot of leather suppliers, but you can do it if you've got the drive.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was gonna say too.
know-how.
Is like a lot of the leathers, like not the exotic ones, right? Because those
Right.
are if you're getting Himalayan crocodile, it's kind of obvious like where this came from. But like if you're going for like just a veg tan leather, like first like most of that in my experience from shopping for leather is coming from animal byproduct from like just the meat industry. Because like can you imagine how expensive it would be to go get like veg tan cowhide just for the leather? Like no one's doing that. Yeah. So like
and that's not quite true. Some of the really high end leathers are specifically for the leather industry, but we're talking like the high end fashion stuff, like the super expensive tooling leather and some of those things. Some of those are specifically sourced for leather, so it does exist. You do have to do a little bit of research, but
but on average, like cosplay is not going to touch that. So we're doing great.
What is the biggest piece of advice that you would give for cosplayers that are starting out trying to learn how to do leather crafting? Like a specific technique, a specific thing to look out for, a specific thing you've seen maybe in contests that you would advise against, something that you think would make their lives easier, any of those types of things.
These are all great.
Oh, how do you pick one?
How do you pick one when you've been doing this for over a decade?
Well, you each get one, so technically you get two.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay.
I'm generous.
You're so generous. Oh, no. Okay.
Mind meld with me.
No, because I want my own answer.
You have one already?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I mean, I kind of have one.
Okay, go for it.
Maybe lame, but I mean, start small. So leatherworking allows you to build things like belts. You can start with a belt. You don't have to start with a full set of armor. You don't have to like make a bag. I mean, you don't have to make a jacket or anything like that. Like you can start small, and by small you can do like a wrist cuff, or you can do a belt. These items already come in pre-cut pieces, so you don't even need to invest in an entire hide. You know, you only need a certain amount of tools in order to do that. You only need a certain amount of hardware, and the hardware is going to be used at the end of it. You're not going to have a lot of things left over. I mean, rivets, you're probably going to have like 100 left over because you can only buy them in packs. But they're useful other places too. I mean, you can use those over in foam work. So, I mean, you're not really losing out if you wind up thinking leatherworking isn't for you. And a lot of the tools from leatherworking and foam working also cross over. And same with sewing too, which is bananas to think that sewing materials and leatherworking, we also flip-flop on tools sometimes too. So that's pretty neat. So, I mean, even though the cost might seem daunting, there's ways to navigate that by picking a project and only picking the tools that you need. You don't need to buy everything under the sun and get a giant hide and then be like, I hated this, and, you know, and feel like you're stuck with it. If you are like interested in doing it, look at the starter kits that places like, you know, like Tandy and Weaver have out there. And those are really like monetarily like comfy. They get you enough stuff to get started, but you are still going to have to supply leather for that. So then kind of look for like the smaller pieces like craft squares or, you know, hides on sale. Like I know it just passed, but like Black Friday sales are some of the best leather sales out there. They really do great sales around Black Friday. So like if you have time to wait for the sales. So
I think it's a really good piece of advice, and I also am taking away from this conversation that I am going to start calling things monetarily comfy instead of inexpensive or cheap. That is perfect. Like next time in my build book, I made this costume in a monetarily comfortable way.
That's awesome.
It's like wearing a sweater.
No, literally.
Monetarily comfortable.
What about you?
So I think for mine, I'm going to use a gotcha. When you start making like bigger things with leather, after that point, one of the things that we ran into that really sucked was different hides dye differently. So we were like, oh, we'll just use the rest of this hide and then we'll cut our other pieces out of this hide and then we'll dye it all the same color and was not fine. No. They were completely different colors because the hides take dye differently.
Specifically if you're working with colors like purple.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a gotcha that we slammed into really hard, and leather's expensive material. Mm-hmm. So it sucks to have to scrap like half of a project because it doesn't match, or just, you know,
because one hide will dye pretty purple and the other one will dye mauve or something, or brown.
Wait,
and you're like,
so do you mean Do you mean between like the same, like if you go to like Tandy and you buy from the same pile, same type of
Yes.
leather, you
Yep.
get 2 hides, and
Yep.
then you're like, okay, let's make our thing. You're saying that like
Mhm.
if you cut out like all of the stuff but one bracer from one hide and you cut one
Yep.
bracer out from the second, it could die differently?
It can
Exactly.
definitely do
That's
that.
exactly what happened to us.
Because think about it, each hide is usually a different animal. So, you know, snowflake syndrome here, like everything is different. No 2 snowflakes are the same. No 2 cows are the same.
Porousness and things like that.
So it's, the tanning process can also goof with things. So that allows like for how much dye can be received, kind of the end color of the like the grain side of the hide. That also changes it too, depending on what type of stain you're using. This isn't as like terrible with like browns and obviously black. It doesn't matter.
Black is pretty okay.
Black is very forgiving. Like browns and things, but then when you start moving into colors, like actual colors,
on the brown too.
Yeah,
lighter browns,
tans get a little iffy because they have more yellow in them. But yeah, when you start like moving to things like orange, red, purple, green, like kind of be a little careful and make sure you're like cutting the same thing from the same hide. And then sometimes there's even gotchas within the gotchas where if you cut it from a different part of the hide that was like closer to like a limb or something where it has a joint like crease, it might dye darker or it might dye differently. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
But
so there's the science behind it. There's a lot of like, unfortunately with leather, even though it is expensive, there's a lot of trial and error. And there's a lot of knowledge that just comes with working with the product. So a lot of it is like, it's like, okay, I've been doing this for over a decade, so I know that like that's something that we need to look out for, but we didn't know that a decade ago.
One more small one, when you are dyeing, especially like those colors and stuff, like buff it in.
Yeah, really buff it.
So that you don't get those streaks.
Yeah. We
like
love
with
a
sponge or your hand or a towel.
Okay.
Not your hand.
So no, not your hand. Please don't use your hands.
A sponge, a dauber.
Your leather too, by the way.
Yes. That dye is made for your skin.
Wear gloves. So the one thing about doing that, my like little leather hack is I don't buy the little wool daubers that they sell. I use a kitchen sponge, specifically the blue ones. Like I think like Scotch Brite or something. I use those and I really like them because they give me a good like buffing consistency. And I don't know, it's just the magic happens every time. And
really?
Just look at our work and oh my gosh, I just took my earphone out.
But not the one where it's 2 different colors.
Yeah, right. The one where it was 2 different colors, that was like beyond help. I don't know. That was a whole thing.
So. You did your best. You did your best with what you had.
That's right.
Okay, pivoting. We're going to talk about I have to kind of give the context for all of this to let people understand what this was. But at YomaCon 2018, you won the Team USA spot to go to compete at Japan Weekend Madrid in Spain in 2019 at the ICL, which is the International Cosplay League. And at ICL in 2019, you won your first place for the duo category. That's quite an achievement. So congratulations late. Only 5 years late, but congrats. I want to talk about that. So can you tell me about the contest ICL itself? Like give me some explanation, some background, some context. I think that with some contests, like for example, WCS, I think a lot of people listening to this would be at least familiar with what that is as a concept. But what is ICL, International Cosplay League?
So it's, I guess like if you've heard of, World Cosplay Summit or way back when there was also like Clara's Cow was the other one, C4. That was a fun one.
Excuse me?
So there was one in, I believe it was the Netherlands. That was the Clara Cow's cosplay competition.
Yeah, something like that.
It was
C4. It was called C4.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And the adorable milkmaid with the cow, and I loved their mascots so much.
Yeah, it was cute.
So yeah, that was a fantastic one. It just ended. I think it's something with the venue. So yeah,
sad. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
So contests like that are where like other countries will bring representatives. We all come to a space and we all compete against each other, kind of like Cosplay Olympics style. And in our case, I think there were 11 countries that year.
Somewhere.
I don't remember. So it's not as big as World Cosplay Summit, but they are growing. I think they had like 16 countries this last year. So yeah, they're like constantly growing, which I love about the director of ICL. Like honestly, incredible.
Shout outs to Gail.
Shout outs to Gail. Always doing the best. So yeah, for ICL, it's basically there is a duo category which competes in the craftsmanship and the performance aspect, and then the solo entry for the country competes only in craftsmanship.
Yep.
So along with the two of us, we also had a third, who was our ICL solo rep. And she did a fantastic job for craftsmanship as well. She did Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. So.
And what did you both do for the people listening?
We did Monster Hunter World. So we did the Huntsman and Third Fleet Master. So NPCs.
And you did a skit too, obviously, because that was a part of your... Okay.
Yes. And our skit was a throwback.
It was.
The thing is, really, really retro. Like, this brought back, like, when we performed it at Youmacon, like, the judges, it was funny because one of them came up and they were like, I remember watching the show with my grandparents. And we're like, we do too. It was we like to take songs and rewrite them in parodies. And this one was the opening to Green Acres. I don't know. Yeah, do you even know?
Oh, I've heard, but I've never seen
it. Was on TV along with Bonanza and like I Dream of Jeannie and stuff like that. Like old TV land TV. And so we took the opener to Green Acres because our whole premise was one of the characters likes to obviously go hunt monsters, and the other one is like, leave me alone, I'm in my library ship. Like, also, how cool is it, a library ship?
That's really cool.
I want that.
That's true.
So it was like one character likes to go outside and the other one doesn't. So we need like some kind of opposing, song that gives both of the, kind of aspects, and then they come together in the end, kind of, sort of. And the Green Acres theme song for some reason popped into our heads because like the husband's like, yeah, let's move out to the country. And the wife's like, I love the city. Yeah. And it's like, oh no, they have opposing aspects and they somehow come together in the end, but not really, because he kind of just makes her move out there.
I remember having the idea, like driving on the highway through rural Minnesota and being like, oh yeah,
this would be great.
Things you think about while driving through rural Minnesota, Green Acres and Monster Hunter.
Exactly.
So that was our premise, because one of them likes to stay indoors and the other one likes to go outside. And in the end, the one that's trying to make the other one go outside kind of pseudo convinces her to not, but then she tricks him and doesn't, and it's a whole thing. It's really fun. It's a great skit. I personally really love that one.
It was fun.
Yeah, it
was a lot of fun.
I think like running second is probably our other Monster Hunter skit that we did at Whole Mat a few years ago. That one was real fun too. So, but
we're just Monster Hunter junkies.
Monster Hunter junkies.
I have yet to play a Monster Hunter game, but I feel like I'd like it. I don't know.
Okay.
I like the costumes from it a lot. I've never found myself sitting down to actually play a Monster Hunter game, but some of these costumes, yours included, obviously, are so cool, and like they give cosplayers so much to work with, which is part of the fun. It's like they're so involved. Is Youmacon still the qualifier location for ICL, or has that moved? It is.
It's still at Youmacon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that Youmacon's in Detroit, right?
It is. Yep, it's in Detroit in October.
End of October usually.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And tell me about Japan Weekend Madrid. Like, what is that? Obviously, it's in Madrid. What is that convention like? Like, what are the vibes like? Like, is it mostly people from within Spain, or like, what is the atmosphere like? How are the cosplayers there? I want to know about it.
Yeah, and for me, it was so different because it takes place in like giant warehouses, like huge, like concrete buildings, like that are in kind of this kind of secluded area almost. Like you have to like bus to them, and I think it's really cool because it's a lot of space. And then I also like the aspect of like European cons love to do the outdoor space. They like to be outside and just kind of chill and like hang out. And I know that's like a big thing in Germany, but like I didn't really know like how much of a big thing it was because I also saw it at at Japan Weekend, and it was kind of fun because like when we would go to our judging was pretty far away, so we had to like walk through kind of the con center, and we were walking past just groups of people just like sitting and hanging out in like these outdoor hallways. And as we were walking by, it was almost like a little parade. Like they got to see all of the ICL contestants walk by in their big fancy costumes, like ready to go up the stairs into judging. So that was really fun. But like the vibe is so it's different but the same.
It reminds me of a Comic-Con style kind of vibe. Like they usually have like I guess I should say Japan Weekend does have a really big like vendor area.
Huge.
And so a lot of action happens around that space too, similar to like a Comic-Con sort of style.
Sorry, there are also live concerts, which is really cool, just happening throughout the day. So like the main stage is also where live concerts happen. And so like that whole space is also like main events is what we would consider.
But it's not like separate like a lot of conventions in the US. It was just sort of like it was actually just in the big concrete building next to the big concrete building with the vendor area. So you just like walk or like going through the
it doesn't sound
center.
as impressive when we talk
You're
about
like,
it, but it's really cool.
It's bunker number 1. It's the bunker number two.
But you walk past the concert going to other things. Like it's all just kind of one space that flows really well, I think.
Yeah. And then for us, the year that we were there, they put up like I think like movie set, like changing rooms and like pop-up areas. So they put up like these faux pop-up walls and rooms and put like floodlights in them to light them. So we had changing rooms and areas to store our stuff behind the main stage, but like those were not permanent rooms. They were all just like stand-ups. And then we had a space off to the side where we had like a fridge and all sorts of like tables to sit at and like an area where food was.
That's something we really should underscore. They were really good to the contestants.
Yeah.
Wow.
They took really good care of us, like really good care of us. That was awesome.
And and before the actual contest and stuff like that, there was also a component where you get to hang out with all the other contestants and they like take you around Madrid and you do like a dinner and stuff like that. Like that part of it was also really fun.
Like a lot of bonding activities, and that was really nice because you got to meet the other teams, you got to meet the other contestants, and you got to meet their handlers, and it was really cool just to kind of like get to know everybody. And of course you bring like little gifts and you do like a little gift exchange with everyone, and like you put your cause cards in there, and it's so fun. And like honestly, we still talk with like a lot of our 2019 family, as we call them, and like every time a new team comes into ICL, I always welcome them into the family, because that's just something that I like. That's another group that I'm incredibly proud of, and every year I get to like celebrate adding more people into this incredible family. So it's really fun. And I like to always give like a little ICL patch to our next representatives that have like ICL. It's the logo and their year and Team USA on it. So they can, like proudly represent. So it's really cool.
That's
that's my little gift to kind of just like keep going, because it was such a big thing for us to get ICL representation. And we were like, this is really cool. And I wanted to give that back. So I was like, this is something that I know I can do. I've got a big old embroidery machine. Let's put it to work.
Right. That makes sense. What is the contest like in terms of a criteria standpoint? Standpoint. Like, I know a lot of contests are like 50% like judging based off of the performance, 50% is craftsmanship. Some vary, and there's different rules. Like, oh, you can't have like any type of like media that's like ripped from someplace, or choreography has to be original. Like, what were the different like rules and criteria that you had when you did ICL?
So I'm not sure if it's still the same exactly, but we're
going to dust off our memories.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just curious. I want to know.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's changed since, but so we're giving like possibly outdated information. But the year that we were there, this was the criteria.
It was 60% performance and 40% craftsmanship.
Yep. 60. Wow.
Yeah. So it was weighted slightly towards the performance aspect. But you still you still couldn't win without a high craftsmanship score also, because 40% was still pretty significant. Yeah.
They had a very interesting thing too, that if there were to be a tie, the tiebreaker would be the team that brought a new outfit to ICL. That they didn't use for qualifier. So it gave an incentive to make a new set basically and a new skit for ICL specifically. We chose not to do that. We chose to make our stuff even beefier, to just like really amp it up, make a great video to go with our skit, really like fix up our costumes, make them even better. So
I think as far as like criteria of content, ICL is pretty wide open.
Yes.
Like it's not like has to be Japanese media or anything like that. Because we've seen stuff from like different video games, from Western video games, from anime here and there. I think there's been some like movie reenactment stuff.
Yeah, this last
there was live
year,
action Harry Potter.
Yep, the year that we were there, there was and then I think this last year it was Les Mis.
That's right.
Yeah, Spain did Les Mis, and they had incredible outfits, and it's like I'd say that ICL is a lot like ECG when it comes to kind of like what is allowed, and it's just like a gambit. Like you can really have a lot of choice, right, which I personally like. Whereas WCS has a lot of constraint around that, obviously, for reasons.
It's like, obviously.
Right. It's a different thing. Yeah.
It's a completely different world.
Oh my god, the whole like I don't know if y'all saw it. I just got a flashback to the whole like Sakizo discussion that happened with I was like, because it's the whole thing about like, oh well, she's not like a published artist, but I know she is. She's a fan artist, and it's like, well, this shouldn't even be entered, and it's like all this mess. And I was like, I didn't know that there were so many rules and restrictions around that until I went and after that looked at all the rules, and I was like, oh my god, it is like heavily like restrained on what you can or can't enter, unlike like you said, like ECG or ICL. It seems like the media you can actually cosplay from is pretty broad. It's more so like, obviously it's like pretty heavily weighted on performance still. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand with European cosplay contests in general, from what I understand. It's like,
but there's also that solo option, right, which is 100% craftsmanship at ICL, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So like you still have that option if you just want to make something and go and do an international competition and not have to write a skit or do a video or do any of that. Like ICL has that solo craftsmanship only aspect, which is cool.
That is a good thing to know.
Yeah, whereas the juxtaposition would be Cosplay World Masters, where it's a solo and a performance. So that's another one.
Where is that
is
one?
At Youmacon. That one's
Portugal?
Portugal, yes.
Yeah, I think so.
A solo performance?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen it and I've seen people do them well. I feel like I'm not talented enough to do that.
It's really hard.
I'm like, how do you like? That's crazy. I'm like trying to think of this. Like I'm thinking of someone I know that did like the Nordic Cosplay Championship, and she did Princess Tutu, and she did like a ballet number, and I'm like, that is a solo performance that has like a lot of merit to it. I feel like I would just be up there like bumbling around, like I don't know, a mess basically. So I want to know like why did you decide that 2018 was the year to try and go for that contest? Like what different factors of your life or in what stage of your crafting cosplaying journey were you in to say, yeah, we're gonna actually go forth and do this? Because people don't really enter these contests on a whim, right? Like there's a lot of intention, a lot of planning behind it, partially because you have to, because there's so much work that you have to put forth in terms of the skit organization and everything like that. But also the other part of it is a lot of us will probably share this. We don't want to necessarily go forth and try for something that large without having the best chance we possibly can to win it.
Yeah.
So based on all that, like why did you decide that 2018 was the year you wanted to go for it?
Do you want my perspective?
Yeah, I would love your perspective.
So in my mind, it all started like probably at NakaCon. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but a few years before 2018.
Shout out to NakaCon, we love you.
Where we were like journeymen as duos, and we got really, really good feedback from the judges about like what we needed to do better. And it kind of put us on this track of like, all right, let's really get into this competition thing. And we started making like so much stuff. Like there was a period of a few years right after that where we were making just ridiculous amounts of cosplay and competing like multiple times a year at different conventions, new outfits every time. Like we were on this like competition, like.
And just as a reminder, it's every con we competed together, so it's 2 new cosplays per convention. So like we did 8 contests. That was 16 outfits.
We were doing just crazy things, like, and we were on this like just upward trajectory where we were slowly doing better and better and better because we were just doing it all the time. And we hit the point where we had like won a few Masters Awards, and we were like, okay, what's next? Like this is that's the end of the train line at a general convention. And so, Detroit was within striking distance of Minnesota. and had that international qualifier. We were like, well, that's the next thing, right? So
because we had done a lot of craftsmanship, and then we started doing performance, and we're like, okay,
and we were just,
and then we started doing performance away from, like, we had done some with a group, and then we had moved away from that, and we were like, okay, we can do it ourselves, and like we've been successful in that, and we're like, okay, I think we're ready, so we just did it.
It was I think a lot of it was momentum based. Like,
yeah, it was right time, right place, honestly.
We were making lots of stuff, we were moving up, we were always looking towards that like next thing, and that was kind of the next thing at the time. So we just put everything we had into it.
Yeah. That sums it up. That's exactly my perspective too. It was, like I said, right time, right place.
Do you think there's ever a time that you two would enter into a contest separately?
We've talked about it.
We have talked about it. So actually, the funny thing is, it started as a joke.
Yeah.
And then the joke became reality, and now we're actually like considering it because it'd be really funny. Because we have such different skills within our skills that we pass stuff back and forth all the time. Like, I will do part of the leather project, he will do part of it, he'll pass it back to me, I'll do this, he'll do that, he'll pass it back to me, and I'll, do that. And thinking that we have to do that by ourselves now is just like, oh, but
so we always had this kind of meme of like, coming to a contest near you, Wig versus Wig, like, this throwdown, like.
I want the SmackDown. I want the Bad Girls Club version of the cosplay contest.
So like our hope and dream is to actually go through with that sometime and just really let all our friends know, because it will be the funniest thing that will like ever happen, because we don't ever compete against each other, and I think that would be, we've competed solo or we've like handled for each other, but we've never competed against each other. In like, I guess we did one time very casually. There was a con in Iowa where we competed against each other. We both entered, but we competed. Yeah, so we competed against each other one time, but that was like very casually, that I don't even kind of count it in a way, because we didn't really plan it, and it was not costumes that we had built recently. We had built them in the past and then like took them because we had never competed in them. So it was kind of like, we're just gonna take them. Because like you had done a lot of updates to Hiccup and you took that, and I had never competed in a meal, so I was like, let's go.
That's true.
So we did that, and so that was like the first time, and it was kind of fun. So we're thinking like, okay, but what if now? What if with our skills now, if we actually went against each other and like went hard and like tried to beat each other, like edge each other out? Like, it's more of a competition between us than with anyone else.
Will we have the time to do this?
Absolutely not.
Someday.
No, we probably would. It'd be like the 2026 like pie in the sky. Yeah, maybe 2027 pie in the sky.
We have to do our wedding first.
Yeah, that's
before
fair.
we have Wig versus Wig SmackDown.
Ugh.
Oh, that's a whole journey in itself.
Can we just like show up? Can that be like the wrestling match?
Oh my god! I have a belt. I have a wrestling belt that anyone, whichever one of you wins, can get the wrestling belt.
No way!
I know, it's up there. It's crazy. I know.
God.
Unfortunately, that convention died, so no more wrestling belts. It's okay. It's fine. That's a little shady, but what advice or what did you learn? I know that's generic, but like I think that there's always some really honest feedback that you can give living through it that is something that you would really want someone else before going to do ICL or when traveling to Spain and in experiencing that would want to know, outside of just the high level things that we hear all the time about these contests, right? But like I'm sure that you have some experience that you're like, wow, this was something that I had no idea, like take this away. Or
make sure that what you build and the set that you build, if that's what you're going to take with you to the finals, make sure it fits in a suitcase and it can travel, because that was something that was eye-opening to us, and we didn't really think about that until it was like, oh my gosh, I need to fit a suit of armor and a table into a suitcase. And then we did it. It was great, but like I've seen people building sets and things. I'm sorry, our cat is like on her lap now.
I saw a cat tail and I was like, what is that?
She was shaking the table. I'm like holding the table discreetly. Please don't. She'll get her time at the end.
She's good now.
Yeah. One thing that I see is people build these sets for like the stateside competitions, and they don't really think in the factor of, will it travel? And then they get to the finals and they can't bring that, or they don't have the time to remake a set to make it have the same like wow factor that it did here over there. And it's like, you know, you lose some of the magic of why you got there, like why you're representing the United States. So really think about how you're going to travel with your stuff, because that's a huge thing that a lot of cosplayers who go into these internationals didn't think about, well, a few years ago. We're thinking about it now for sure, because it's been like reiterated again and again. Be sure you can travel with this, or at least I hope a lot of people are talking about it, because I feel like people are talking about it. I know I do.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I was trying to think of another like piece of advice, but it's all like generic stuff. I think
time management.
Well, okay, yeah, but that's general. That's general kind of stuff. I'm thinking about like the internationals.
Fair.
I think treasure the time you spend with other individuals at the event.
Yes.
Because that's like the most limited resource of the experience. Definitely the time we got to spend with the other contestants. Because like we said, we formed really strong bonds, but like we wouldn't have if we wouldn't have been really trying to spend that time with those other people. Because you have an automatic in with all of these other people, just like at any other contest, right? And so you can make some really, really cool and lasting friendships, I think, at those sorts of events. So make time for that. That would be mine.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think cosplay is super social, so take advantage of it.
Yeah, well, something else we talked about when I had Matthew on this podcast a few episodes ago. We talked about his experience with C2E2. Oh my god, I was like hard blanking on what that was called. And he was talking about how he met so many people during that experience that he considers really good friends, but that he barely has a chance to see because the nature of these contests, unlike your local city or state or even like United States based contest, these people are coming from all over the world and you might not ever see them again in person.
Yeah,
which is so sad, but it's a reality. Whenever, like, obviously, like, you know, travel is expensive and we don't have the funds or availability just to like pick up and go anywhere we want in the world at any given time, right? And so part of the experience that's so, I think, so interesting and valuable is that you are getting the opportunity to go somewhere completely new and meet all these different cosplayers from all over the world that you would never have met in other circumstances, most likely. But it is bittersweet because it's like after the end of the time, like you said, like you don't know if you're going to see them ever again. Like hopefully, and like I mean, ideally, like they'll go to conventions in the United States, vice versa. But like at the end of the day, it's like you don't know that, and so being in the moment and not necessarily waiting for the next thing, I guess, is kind of the takeaway there. Because at the end of the day, you don't. What more do you really have to prove at that point? Right. You don't.
If you're focused on that contest and you're not like taking in that experience, that's something that you won't get back, right? Like you can only do that one time. I mean, maybe you'll do more contests and stuff, but in general, like that time that you spend at the actual competition is so limited and so valuable. So make sure to make use of that. And I think for me too, like emphasizing the people that are there with you, because like we saw some cool stuff in Spain, but the sightseeing was so secondary, is so secondary in my mind now compared to like the people that we met and the time that we spent with those people. Like the value
compared to like the running joke of whose set could be built first, because we had PVC pipe madness, and then Spain was building tiny little boxes for like hours.
Like a whole, they built a whole brick wall.
And it was so funny because like the director comes over and now there's this mini joke of who's going to finish first. And like all the other teams are crowding around, like cheering us on, and we're trying to gaffer tape for our life. And like, it was just so funny. And you think back on these moments and you're like, yeah, we went to go see some really great stuff, but like, it was like, you learned silly chair dance moves from
the moments
like
with
some
the
of the other
people were
teams,
so
like,
much more fun.
Just silly things, and like, you know, borrowing scissors, and you know, like making sure like everyone has water, and you know, just
and
really
even like interacting with like the Chinese team through a translator and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and, like,
you had a great time
having a dialogue there, and then exchanging like gifts at the end of the you know, the experience and all that stuff, like all that's like really, really valuable to me. I mean, I'm super, super into the social aspect of cosplay in general. So for me, that was like the biggest payoff of ICL was that like specific time and place with people that will just never be repeated, right?
Isn't that interesting how like how we get into cosplay, I think primarily from a social aspect. I don't know a single person that I've talked to that got into cosplay to compete. Like every single person I know have talked to or have met has gone into cosplay because they wanted to do it with their friends or they wanted to find friends, and they just had a genuine love for anime or video games and dressing up. And I think it's funny how after a while some people end up finding themselves going to a competition path, and you know, it's very easy to slip into a point of hyper competitiveness and dark-sightedness. I don't know a better way to put that. That sounds very like ominous and like very Sith of
dark-sightedness.
Yeah, I know.
Monetarily comfy.
Right. No. But, it is funny how like people can, you know, it's a competitive, you know, it can be a competitive aspect, but at the end of the day, even at the most competitive of competitions in this world for cosplay, once you get up to that point, it all reverts back down to the beginning of why you got into it at the beginning. It's a circle. It really is. And it's like,
it's true.
It's nice in a sense because it's like, I think that it's a kind of a grounding force for why you're even doing it in the first place.
Right.
And it's like, obviously it's a huge deal to be at that point and to be doing this type of contest. But at the end of the day, we're all just there to make friends, dress up, and because we want to like, you know, hang out. Right. So no, it's funny how things circle around like that. You don't really think about that too often, but that is the reality of it. It's like, you know, it's not, everyone's not bloodthirsty up until the last minute.
right. Exactly.
At least from what I've had talked to people about and their experiences have been, it hasn't been like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're finding yourself like feeling that way, you're probably missing out on that social aspect that is still there.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about cosplayers and relationships. I said we would talk about this.
Let's go.
I have not known many. I'm trying to put this in a very nice way with flowers and bows. I've not known many cosplayers that have been couples that have been happy.
And that was the nicest way you could put it.
Wow. I mean,
that's the nicest way I could put it. I think that most of the time when you see a cosplayer, if they're in a relationship, they're partnered with someone who obviously supports their hobby. They support their creative endeavors. They might not be crafty at all. They might just, you know, go to an event with them. They might hold their stuff and be like a handler for the day when they're with them. They might like, you know, help with, I'm putting on a corset. Can you measure me? Things like that. But it's never to the degree, or not usually to the degree of actually being in the trenches, one with one, like working on cosplay together to wear it together. That's rare. I mean, there have been times when, you know, people made cosplays for a significant other to dress up and they like, you know, they have fun. Yeah. I've made my boyfriend do my fair share of very gay anime characters.
Absolutely.
But it's always just throwing him in costume and dressing him up, right? It's not like, you know, we're making things together in my craft room. I found that over my years, the cosplayers that are in relationships, a lot of them, not all of them, but majority, it can get very stressful and contentious. I found that it can be, you know, conventions can be stressful inherently. Getting dressed in cosplay, getting your makeup on and getting to the photo shoot on time can be stressful, even if you're not dating the person that you're doing it with. As well as, you know, just running up against timelines like in deadlines, and, you know, not everything has to be finished by a date, but there are things like ICL where it's like you have to have something finished, and that can be stressful. There can be fights. I've seen like relationships ended through cosplay feuds. I've seen all kinds of things, but I want to talk to you about, I guess, at the core, what do you think makes your relationship successful, being that you two are a cosplay duo through and through and have done this for so many years?
I'm trying to boil it down because there's a lot to it. Right?
I mean, we've been together for a very long time and we've been cosplaying for a very long time. So it's an onion of an answer, kind of. I guess I could kick it off.
Sure.
Oh, maybe not.
So okay, I think I've got it.
Okay, all right, toss.
Yeah. So this is gonna sound really like stereotypical.
Go for it.
But honestly, it's just work, because, like you said, you're gonna be, there's gonna be contentious, there's gonna be fighting. Like there are situations there that kind of breed that sort of situation where you're going to have a misunderstanding or a miscommunication or something, right? That wasn't where you're not both on the same page. So you have to be ready and willing to work through every single one of those moments. Like, that's really what it comes down to. It's like when you talk to your grandparents and you're like, how did you guys stay married for 70 years? And there's two answers. Either we started ignoring each other at a certain point, or we worked hard at it all the time consistently throughout the whole thing, right? And I think for us, it has to be, we worked hard at it consistently all the time through the whole thing, right? And every costume is a different set of circumstances and a different, like, almost like navigation of our relationship, our outside of cosplay requirements and duties and other stuff going on, and then our cosplay. And we have to weave through all of that and try to over communicate to each other, like where we're at right now, what I need to be doing, what we're willing to commit to, those sorts of things have to be super clear. Because any sort of crack where something wasn't communicated correctly is a fight later. And you're going to hit some of those, right? Like, there's no way you can't actually Vulcan mind meld your way through the process, but you can try as hard as you can to, like, get to that point.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, that's I'd say probably the best answer. The one that I would.
Thanks.
I think also it's just understanding that even though you're not always going to be your best self, because obviously, like, stress is rampant in cosplay, specifically crafting of cosplays, because deadlines, con crunch, like, just I'm learning a new skill, or something isn't going right, or I had a bad day at work and now I'm, like, taking it out, at my sewing machine, and he walks into the room and I got a seam ripper in my hand and he asks me a question and it's like, not right now, like, it's one of those kinds of times. But it's also, you have to remember that even if you're not your best self, you need to be kind. So apologizing and making sure that you, like, talk it out and, like, make sure that both voices are heard, and just kind of, it's like literally anything with a relationship. Like, you have to communicate and you have to be willing to forgive each other and you have to be willing to work through it. Yeah. And I mean, as cheesy and, like, I don't know, self-help book as that sounds, you do have to, like, keep working at it.
It's
to be
really
open to communication.
Yeah, it's like hitting the fast forward button on finding relationship problems to do a cosplay together.
It really is.
Right? It's like, where are you not going to communicate well with each other? Let's find out.
I feel like that show, like,
right
Love
now.
is Blind, should put, like, people into, like, cosplay together and see if they can make it, because if they can, like, they're good. They're good.
Oh,
like, that's
just, like,
right.
Oof.
That's how we've learned about, like, our communication styles, and, like, what sort of needs we have around stress, and
our
like
work
all this
ethics.
Stuff, like, all of that has come out for us during cosplay, because that's the crucible that we've put ourselves in, where we find those boundaries. Mm-hmm. Like, for most people, it's going to be like money, or other, like, children, or whatever those, like, other factors are that are going to push you to that point where you find those points of contention. Like, cosplay will just do that for you. So and like, very quickly. So you have to be, like, ready.
Yeah.
You can't go into a cosplay thinking it's just going to be smooth sailing. You guys are going to be best friends forever the whole time. It's going to be the best. Like,
F is for friends. We do stuff together.
Yeah, it's basically it's going to be a trial by fire.
Yeah.
Like, and it still is every time. Like, you have to go into it knowing that there's going to be contention, and being willing to work through that whenever it happens. Because it's gonna, over the crunch, especially if you get into a hard crunch, like, then you're gonna be putting yourselves in under more stress, both of you, and that's very easy to, like, say things you don't, that, like, have things misconstrued because you said them more harsh than you meant to. All those sorts of things happen when you're both stressed. It gets worse, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have to be you have to know that that's going to happen and not be like blindsided, being like, oh my gosh, we've done this cosplay together and I didn't know that we would ever not get along. You're gonna not get along. Like that's gonna be part of the process. So yeah, it's the willingness.
Yeah. And to like, I guess like 2 quick things, like cosplay for us is a hobby. It's not our relationship. Right. So our relationship always comes first. Like if things start getting kind of and we're working on costumes and we're not being really nice to each other, we put that aside, because at that point it's like starting to like leak out into the relationship, and then we're like, nope, that's unacceptable. So we put a hard kibosh on that and say, nope, the relationship is more important. So we step back and we figure out what can we do to move forward and also like preserve like the hobby. So we've had those conversations, and like we've had them, we revisit this conversation because it's not just a one and done. Right. Because our like role in cosplay in our lives has changed over the decade or so that we've been doing this. So it's, you
can't just solve it once, right? Like it's where you're at right now.
And then 2, figuring out how you work, because we don't like to work in the same space. So we have 2 crafting spaces where we can listen to different music, we can have different shows on, because he doesn't like watching, reruns of Ghost Hunters, like whatever, I get it. Well, not everyone
it's not that I don't like watching reruns of Ghost Hunters, it's that I will do zero crafting. If there is like a show like that on the TV, I'm like...
And then like he wants to listen to like the Hades soundtrack, and like that is not like the music that's like calming for me. So I'm like, okay, I'll go over here and I'll listen to lo-fi or something in my room. So, and then also I have like sewing machines and he has leatherworking stuff, and those 2 things don't really like mesh well in the same space sometimes. So we try to we have to both roll
hammering
out
inserters
large...
don't sound like a symphony of beautiful sounds to you?
Oh my gosh, it's the symphony of lawnmower. So we both have to roll out very large items, and we will fight for space. And so now we just don't do that in the same space, or we communicate if we do need to use the same space. We communicate when we're going to be doing that, so we don't trip over each other, or be like, I walk into the room and he's cutting leather and I'm like, I needed to roll out my fabric, and I was going to do that today, and suddenly I'm Mickey Mouse.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't know, but it's one of those things where it's like we need just communicate to each other, know how you work, when you work. Because also he likes to work in the morning. I'm a night owl.
Right.
That it will never change. Like that is never going to be a change thing.
We had a period of time where like we wanted to work like at the same time all the time. And eventually we realized that like we were just having more non-productive time, because one of us would feel non-productive, the other would be feeling productive, but neither of us would work.
This is where you insert like the DiCaprio.
Oh
like we thought we could work together.
Yeah, exactly. So now we've like gotten a lot better at being like, oh, you're not feeling productive. I'm gonna go work on this and not feel bad that you're not also working hard. Like, because right now you're in a phase where you're recovering, and then there will be also times where like the other person is feeling productive and working really hard on something, and you have to both get over that like guilt of not working when your partner's working, and you have to get over that like what's the right word, that like resentment of I'm working hard and my partner's not. Yep. Like you have to be okay with both of those states, because
when you do a couple cosplay, you no longer can like hold the carrot of, I guess, like group percentage. It really doesn't work that way anymore, because it's a relationship. Like if you're like cosplaying with your bestie and you live in different houses and you both need to make costumes, you can 50-50 that, like, figure out what you're good at. But when it is your partner and you know what each other are good at, sometimes it might be a 70-30, and you can't call it that. It's a 100. Like it's just done. So like he's putting in his work, I'm putting in my work.
Especially for us, because we've been cosplaying so long together, we've both just naturally specialized really hard into specific stuff. Because that was the way when we were doing like our crazy run through trying to compete all the time. That was the most efficient way to do things, was to each get really good at specific parts of the process. And so now we're in this position where like, depending on the costume, it's gonna split differently, because so like some costumes are going to be more me and some costumes are going to be more Janella, and we just have to be we have to be okay with that, because that's how we've like evolved.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but I mean,
and that's how we also think about our costumes
specific,
too. Like when we pick costumes, we also think about who's going to be shouldering more of the work,
and who's got the time.
And who has the time. Like, is is it setting someone up for failure,
Mhm.
you know, rather than
Right.
success?
Because we've done that.
Unfortunately, we've accidentally done that. So,
I mean, all of these lessons are us doing it wrong and then
Right.
realizing what we need
and then to do
instead.
it right and fix it. So
Yeah.
we've definitely like reversed it and done it
Mhm.
successfully after
Yeah.
learning a pitfall.
Yeah.
So
That's it. So it's interesting because you said I've done like cosplay trades, obviously, with friends when competing with them or just making the costumes for fun to wear. Where it's like, okay, I know that I can do armor much faster than
Mhm.
I would be able to sew this. So like, let's trade, and you do that and I do that. But usually, it's a pretty equivalent exchange of
Mhm.
time
Mhm.
and resources. So like the time that I'm spending making a like bracer is the time that they're spending sewing something on my costume, right? It's like it's pretty equal exchange, but I
Mhm.
guess you're right, in relationships it's not always an equal exchange, and that's just
Yeah.
part of the nature of a relationship, and learning how to navigate that so there isn't
Yeah.
resentment and the
Mhm.
cosplay isn't contributing to overall like stress and strife in the relationship is so important.
Mhm.
And I was actually going to ask, but you answered it already, if there were any like preventative measures or tactics or methods you put into place over the course of your relationship when it comes to building costumes conventions to help remove stress elements from surfacing. But you already addressed that, like a separation of space, an understanding of commitments, balancing like skills, all of these things that you've done through our relationship to make it the best that it can be,
Right.
and to remove any potential pitfalls that could be there based on the projects that you're working
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
The tough thing about that is though, like those solutions are all specific to us, right? Like, because you could be a different cosplay couple and you would need to approach it differently. Like, there are some cosplay couples that we know that like have to work together, you know, that's how it works for them, and you have to find out basically. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way to like know going in how you're going to work best together.
Yeah, I think the only one that is like accessible across the field for every cosplay couple is like the like accountability one, where it's you cannot resent your partner for having a bad day at work and needing to take a rest day. Like, you cannot resent your partner for not doing as much on a costume when the costume physically doesn't have that much in their field for them to do as versus yours. So like the resentment aspect needs to be like zero, because you are doing this project together because you want to, not because you have to. There's no like, if I don't do this, XYZ things, like they won't be in a relationship with me. Well, one, don't be in a relationship with that person if that's what's really keeping you together, because yikes, that's not healthy.
Yeah, no quid pro quo. That's definitely a good.
So it should be a hobby that you enjoy together. And
Right.
just like, some people enjoy golfing.
Right.
Like,
and everybody,
yeah, right? Like, I don't know why that was my example. Like, I'm sorry.
And everybody,
you should apologize. Thank you.
Everybody enjoys cosplay differently, so you have to know and respect how your partner enjoys cosplay.
Mm-hmm. One more thing before we wrap up this conversation is I was thinking about this as you were talking, and I realized that I find that with friends, when you're in a con crunch situation and you're working on cosplay, there's a lot more, it's more likely for there to be less conflict, I think. And I think there's it's a lot more. And I say that because I think that in relationships, sometimes people can get really comfortable with saying and doing and acting and feeling a lot more with their partner than they would be comfortable with their friends. And I think it's because, and I'm not necessarily everyone is like this, but I definitely have seen this as well, where there's almost like an understanding of like, oh, well, I'm your boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend, I'm your partner. I already have this much higher level of like bond with you, so therefore I can act worse and the repercussions will be less severe than with a friendship. And the logic there doesn't make sense, but I've seen it play out that way more and more times before. Things that are said to a partner that they would never say to me, even if under the same situation, working on the same costumes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, no, that is really
I've never
interesting.
thought about it that way, but
yeah, the same. Like, I guess we've just always tried to have like, because we've done group projects and things like that, we've just always tried to have good communication with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of the base layer is like just communicate. Like we just need to know like where everybody is, like what, you know, space you're in, like what mental space you're in, what like physical health space you're into, and just kind of making that, you know.
I think you're keying into something there too, though, because you might also attribute more value to a group project with your partner than you do with a group project with friends. Like it might mean more, like emotionally, sort of. And so like things going wrong with it might be even more impactful from that aspect too. Like where you're like, oh, I'm doing this with my partner as a, you know, an us activity. This, you know, we need this to go well because I want it to be an enjoyable experience for us that is part of our relationship, which is a lot more pressure than I want to have fun with my friends at a con.
Right. The emotional investment's a lot higher, therefore the emotions are going to be higher with whatever ends up happening.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Thank you for the Dr. Phil moment. I appreciate it. I haven't had the opportunity to like ask anyone these types of things on here, so thank you. I want to have one more topic before we wrap it up, and I want you to introduce your third member of your household. Is Peppy somewhere over there?
She's on a chair.
There she is.
Do you want to roll back, grab her?
I would love for her to make an appearance.
She's on a chair too. She likes to. I have to have two chairs when I'm sewing because she has to co-pilot, and she likes to steal my chair so then I can just switch chairs.
Oh,
but
she's so pretty. Oh my gosh! So describe Peppy in the best illustration you can for those who aren't watching.
So Peppy is a fluffy calico cat. Think like 5-inch long hair, and she has a dot on her nose that looks like she got into an ink pot, and we call it the Marilyn Monroe. So she's good. She's our little palico, calico.
She's ridiculously photogenic.
Yes.
She has like a really pretty back color and pretty face.
She's been in cosplay before, right? You've just done cosplay.
She's done it twice. She did Venti from Genshin Impact, and then she did a Calico from the Dango stand in Monster Hunter Rise. So she cosplayed with me for that one.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, because I did Yomogi, which is the girl who works with the Calicos at the Dango stand. So
that is so perfect. Did you ever think about how old is she?
She's like anywhere between, we think, 14 to 16.
She's a senior lady.
She's a senior lady now.
She's a grande madame.
We don't know for sure because she's a rescue, and so they have like an estimated age.
They look at their teeth, and with cats, it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I could ask my vet friends; they probably know better, but they kind of just gave us a ballpark. Oh, she's back on her chair already.
She's pushing my home. Have you ever thought about getting or I guess, since you've had her, did you ever think about getting a second cat or no?
She's never, any animal that she's ever interacted with has been, she does not want anything to do with them.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of
and
because
not
of
want
her
anything
that we haven't gotten a second cat.
Yeah, I think it's two things here. She doesn't want to do anything with them, and the fact that she's afraid of them. So she's a big old scaredy cat. Right. She has like food insecurity and stuff like that. So if she sees another animal, she just like freaks out. And then the fact that she's very protective of us. So even when we have friends over, she like glares at them and she's like, "How dare you take time from my mom and dad where they could be petting me?"
Oh,
that's
my God.
Yeah,
a diva.
So then as soon as we are out of the picture and like our friends who like come over when they see her with us, if they come over to watch her while we're gone, she loves on them. She absolutely adores them. But as soon as we're re-entered into the picture, she's like, I don't want these people around.
That is so
She's
funny.
a diva through and through.
So in general, I think we'd probably be okay with having two cats. It's Peppy that does not want a friend.
Yeah, she wants mom and dad.
Well, you know what? What Peppy wants, Peppy gets. That's what
that
I
is
say.
So true. Wow, yeah. And like I know that all like however many followers we have on Instagram, I know they're there for the Peppy. So like I know it's like costume secondary, funny. Peppy first. So if you're in our stories, you get lots of Peppy photos. So just,
I love her. Oh my God. So good.
She is a treasure that we definitely didn't like go searching for. She kind of found us. So yeah.
So perfect. After this, I'll show you my own cats. I'll bring them in here and like, expose you to them. Oh, that sounded weird. Okay, I'm going to read the outro card and then come to you at the end to tell us where we can find you and stuff. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you for joining another episode of the Cosplay Crunch. I'm going to skip this part because I keep telling you to ask questions and not actually read them. But I keep also saying that I might do a reunion episode at the end of season 2 to ask all of the questions that have been built up in my email. So if you want to ask a question, you can email cosplaycrunchpod@gmail.com. Please rate us on your podcasting app of choice. It helps the show grow and shows to new people who might want to listen or watch. You can also follow us on Instagram at Cosplay Crunch Podcast for the latest news and announcements. You can also go on YouTube at the Cosplay Crunch Podcast and at cosplaycrunch.com. Wig-Wig Cosplay, Wig Tall, Wig Small, Alan, Janella, where can people find you online? And do you have any parting words for the listeners?
Yeah, I guess since I'm pretty much in charge of the socials, I'll take care of that. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, and TikTok, and whatever, as Wig-Wig Cosplay.
And get in our DMs about questions about leatherworking, especially, but really any questions. We love to talk to people about techniques and crafting and stuff. So.
Yeah. And if there's a question you have specifically for Wig Tall over here, just let me know and I'll pass the phone to him.
Yep.
I love that. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really had a great time.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, until next episode and until next week, I will see you all later,
Yeah.
and I'll see the listeners later too. Goodbye.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
The Cosplay Crunch podcast is hosted by Savage Cosplay, with post-production also by Savage Cosplay. Original theme music by Katie Fairbanks. Logo and graphic design by Owl and Coffee.